tighten up my meat.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerized. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
I like my meat tight.
Around the nation, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. It's a little bit of a rough day for all of us. So I thought I'd start out with a little bit of humor, because might help a little bit. Obviously, everybody knows about what happened with Michael Brooks. It's still a little bit tough to, kind of like accept that's the reality. So I mean, I guess I want to start out the show by saying, a little bit of how I feel about this. What happened. Obviously, I didn't know Michael too well, but he and I did a show together. He was on my podcast, and that was great. You guys can check that out. And of course, we'd have a little bit of conversation. Had a little bit of conversation before, but I always had a lot of respect for Michael, and of course, you guys know that I thought that he was incredibly smart, and he absolutely was. He's somebody. So what I like to do is, I know that there's a lot that I need to learn. Okay. I know that, I'm constantly learning new things. And of course, that's what we should all aspire to do as human beings, as people. And we should learn more things. And so being around Michael, and being in contact with Michael and watching his content, that stuff, I enjoy doing that because I believe that made me smarter. Being around smart people makes me a smarter person. And so that's one of the things that I absolutely loved, is that, he really was passionate about his work. He dove right in, and he knew a lot of things because, he spent the time and he looked it up and he had an understanding of a lot of different things, and would always bring, different stories from different places, cover things, politics in South America, Caribbean politics, stuff that normally doesn't get covered. And that's like stuff that is important. And it's all, a lot of his reporting was all tied in with empathy and humanity. And that was, one of the things that you get, when you talk to him, is that he's one of those people that, it really cares for the betterment of humankind. You know what I mean? That he's, he's genuine. He gives a shit. And he really does want things to be better. There's a lot of people that go into this career, that do this for, gain, for clicks, for notoriety, for, whatever, right? For a following. Michael was not that way. Now, Dave Rubin, definitely that way. Somebody looking for money. And so that's also why I really enjoyed Michael, because he would constantly dunk on Dave Rubin, and that was always fun. I like that. Michael's coverage of Bolivia was good to have available. Absolutely. And so, look, here's the thing. I am not good with saying goodbye, I guess. I'm not good at tributes. I'm not good at, endings, right? I'm not good at this. Like, what can I always think that what can I say, what can I add to the conversation that hasn't already been said? I've been watching, today Majority Report. And the whole show has been, a dedication to Michael, and that's appropriate. I mean, he started out with the Majority Report, and then branched out to Woke Bros, that podcast, working with Jacobin, and doing the Michael Brooks show, and doing all these projects. And I guess another thing to add in is that he was incredibly helpful to people like myself, and others, anybody, right? He was somebody that would, it's there's no ego. There was no ego with Michael. There was, you want to collaborate, go ahead and reach out. Like, I'll work with you, as long as, we're working with the same goal here to do better things, and to enact better policy, to push for that, all that stuff. And that's, again, just goes back to how genuine Michael was. And so I was very, very surprised that, he had added me on Facebook, right? That's one of those things where it's like, oh, wow. Oh, that's really cool. And so I was able to reach out to him through that. And because of that, and I was lucky enough to be able to work with him. And so I was happy to be able to do that. And very lucky that the first time, but it sucks because the first time that I was able to talk to him was also the last time. And so that is something that is a little bit bittersweet. And, that conversation is something that I'm going to remember. So, and the other thing too that kind of struck me about this is that he's my age. You know what I mean? And I know that it can come at any time. I know that anything can happen at any time. But just to see somebody so young die so, suddenly, and just out of nowhere, no sickness, no history, just, like that. It really does, make you think. And it also makes you really appreciate life. And I'm just going to say that the left has lost a champion, a lion, somebody who has, just, and this is to reflect what Sam had been saying. We lost somebody who was at the beginning of what was going to be just a great, not only career, but just, I mean, life, you know what I mean? He had a lot more to say. He had a lot more to add. And now, we're going to have to pick up and to, keep working and working towards that world that, he was working for, towards too. And so it's just, we got to pick up the work, and that's it. You just got to. All right. I guess I will go forward here and move on. All right. Start the show. Yeah, I think Michael's style would have converted a lot of people in the coming years if this didn't happen. Yeah, he had that ability. He for sure did. Most people, Michael Burks had something MSM people never had: integrity. Absolutely, Michael was a mentor to so many. Such a loss. Yeah, one thing that just to keep adding on to it, I guess, he did get to cross some things off his bucket list that some really amazing achievements. I mean, he met with Lula da Silva, somebody that his reporting, I do believe, helped free Lula from prison, and then meeting with Cornel West. I mean, that's just amazing, absolutely amazing. And ending hunger, yes. I remember seeing a video from his Instagram where he was talking about there's absolutely no reason that we cannot end hunger, like today, if we have the will to do so. And so 100% got to pick up and carry on the work and continue. But it ain't going to be easy, that's for sure. All right. Anyway, let's try to lighten it up just a little bit and talk about some masks, talk about Donald Trump. President Donald Trump is getting a lot of pushback for his sudden endorsement of masks. Huh. Now, in a tweet, because of course, right? Along with that tweet, by the way, was a picture of him actually wearing a mask. So you can see that. That's the picture from his Twitter. And he said this: "We are united in our effort to defeat the invisible China virus. And many people say that it is patriotic to wear a face mask when you can't socially distance. There is nobody more patriotic than me, your favorite president." God damn it. Why does he make it so difficult to give him the tiniest amount of credit? Why? You know what? I actually want to be, one day, I want to be like, you know what? I disagree with Donald Trump on a lot, but nice work. Good job, man. I mean, even in this case, like, okay, you were a little late there, buddy, and, about 140,000 deaths late. But good job. You did the bare minimum and you didn't mess it up. But no, can't even do that because, for one, immediate racism. And also, he didn't actually call on anyone else to wear a mask. He just said, many people say that it's patriotic to wear a mask. Of course, right? Now, look, he did call it patriotic, which I agree is good framing. That framing might spur some people to wear masks. And so if it does, great, wonderful. But let's just say he had to do the obnoxious Donald Trump thing. You know it is, right? Nobody's more patriotic than me, your favorite president. No. Look, he could not wait to do that, to trigger the libs. There's no other explanation. Like, he had to. He can't help himself. And he does that. So, again, the media will criticize him. And then he will end up playing victim. Yep. Congratulations. Mission accomplished. Way to go. Because here came the inevitable shitstorm. Starting with American Bridge 21st Century, who points out that in the interview, Donald Trump just said, quote, that masks don't work. In fact, here.
And I don't agree with the statement that if everybody wear a mask, everything disappears. Hey, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask. Our Surgeon General, terrific guy, said don't wear a mask. Everybody was saying don't wear a mask. All of a sudden, everybody's got to wear a mask. And as you know, masks cause problems too.
No, they don't. No, that's literal fake news. Masks don't cause problems. Now, look, on the point about Fauci, and the masks, right? Look, Dr. Fauci and the federal government at the time, the CDC, were reserving masks for medical professionals at the beginning of this pandemic. Because, look, we didn't have enough masks for the medical professionals in the hospitals, and we were expecting basically a lot of cases to fill up the hospitals. And not only that, but at the time, we also didn't really know how effective masks would be at stopping the transmission of this virus. And so that's because scientists hadn't had a chance to study the virus and look at the transmission rates and look to see what would be the most effective thing. So now, too many people, I think, don't actually understand what science is, or they don't actually understand, how it works, right? They don't realize that science is a process, and getting it wrong is a part of that process. It's an inevitable part of that process, and that's how they come to the right conclusion, is they eliminate everything that's wrong. When something is proven wrong through observation and testing, then the consensus shifts, because now, well, we know what doesn't work. So we're going to go through the process of elimination, through testing, through observation, to figure out what actually does work, what actually is true. It's not just about the answers, it's about the search. And SARS-CoV-2, or COVID-19, coronavirus, it's a new strain of coronavirus, and there's a lot that we don't know, especially a lot that we didn't know at the beginning of this. And we still don't know everything. And anybody who's claiming to know everything, they're not being honest with you. Okay? That said, we do know a lot more than we did. And one of the things that's changed is the fact that we know that masks are effective in limiting the transition of the virus. Especially, again, if everyone wears them. Now, how do we know? Well, one way is through observation. We have countries around the world that have adhered to mask guidelines, even in lieu of a lockdown, right? So some countries just did the physical distancing, social distancing, whatever you want to call it, and everybody wore masks. And in some of these countries, South Korea and Japan, were able to avoid lockdowns. I mean, that, of course, relied on everyone following the mask guidelines. Now, in Asia, masks aren't a big deal, right? You see pictures from China, video from China all the time. They were wearing masks before COVID, right? And so that's not really a big deal in at least China. And as far as community is concerned, well, I mean, there's more of a sense of community in Japan than there is here in America, where we, of course, stress rugged individualism. And so, maybe that whole focus on community and caring about your community, caring about your, fellow citizens and human beings plays a lot into masks. Not only that, but of course you have trust in institutions, something in America we also do not seem to have, right? But again, we should mask up because it is effective and it has been shown to be effective. But there's more. Brian Tyler Cohen writes, breaking, man buys fire extinguisher after entire neighborhood burns down. That's about what it is too. Another one says, gee, it only took 5 months, 142,000 dead Americans, 42 million unemployed Americans, 18 states sharply spiking upward, and a 15-point poll deficit to Joe Biden. Ouch. Now, they also add, let's be real, though. You only cared about the poll numbers. You were neither patriotic nor favorite. And look, his poll numbers have been an absolute, utter train wreck. I mean, he's averaged, in the swing states alone, states that are supposed to be competitive, down by 5 in the latest polls. Arizona, He's behind by 2. And so, Jesus, man, he is not doing well. Another person adds, imagine how many more people would be alive right now if you did this back in March. It's a good chance that more people might have taken it seriously had the president of the United States actually stepped up to be a leader. But of course, he's not. Another person adds, should have done this 140,000 deaths ago. Would have been nice. Putting aside the gratuitously insulting reference to China virus, it's good to see President Trump belatedly modeling and encouraging mask use. If he had done so in March, instead of disdaining masks for months, many lives might have been saved. And of course, there's another take. People are curious why he finally did this. They told him, meaning advisors, campaign workers, point blank this morning, that if he doesn't at least fake it, he's finished in November. It's why he's also bringing back his gibberish daily briefings. He will mess it all up. Those briefings, by the way, a lot of Republicans, many Republicans are saying, to use this framing. But it's being reported that Republicans are worried that he's going to, again, turn those COVID briefings into Trump rallies, essentially. But hey, at least he's, wearing a mask. Oh, son of a bitch. All right. Man. Moving on. Fox host Brian Kilmeade was caught sharing a fake tweet from allegedly from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, this tweet claimed that it was vital for governors to maintain the coronavirus restrictions to stop Donald Trump from being reelected. I'm going to show you that tweet here, or alleged tweet. So you can see Brian Kilmeade. He's like, is this what Donald Trump has been saying? And this would be, it is vital that governors maintain restrictions on businesses until after the November elections because economic recovery will help Trump be reelected. A few business closures or job losses is a small price to pay to be free from his presidency. Hashtag keep us closed. Of course, that is a fake tweet because she didn't actually write that. But of course, it would be incredibly damaging had she did. Because here's the thing. No one, and I mean no one, likes being locked down. Just nobody. I hate it. You probably hate it. I don't want to be locked down anymore. I don't want to have to wear a mask everywhere I go. But guess what? I'm an adult. I'm an adult who actually cares about his community, his family, myself, other people. And so, I do both in the hopes that we can eventually get a handle on this thing. And also to provide a good example for others. I guess it's something called personal responsibility, right? I'm responsible enough to care for my own health and for the health of others. Personally responsible. And again, the tweet itself is fake. It's a fake tweet. It's not real. According to a fact check by Snopes, the tweet image was a fabrication, a Photoshop. However, and not something posted by AOC, it does not appear in her Twitter timeline, nor was it recorded by databases that capture and preserve deleted tweets. Now, you guys know this. I say this all the time, right? Nothing really disappears on the internet. Like, you can't get rid of it. That's why we can do so many segments on something that's, horrible, tweeted by a horrible person that he then or she quickly deletes. But of course, we already know it. Like, it's on the Wayback Machine. It's in the internet because it never goes away. Somebody screenshotted it or saved it. And so nothing really disappears. So if it had actually been there, well, then we would know. Moreover, they said, and this is more evidence of the fact that it's fake. Although the tweet was supposedly shared over 20,000 times, we could find no instances whatsoever of the original tweets having been shared or commented upon at all. Very suspicious. It exists only as a screenshot of a faux tweet posted to a private Facebook group. How much does AOC trigger the right wing for them to be sharing this stuff all over, Facebook? I mean, she is a freshman congresswoman, right? And yet, she somehow has the power to operate rent-free in the heads of so many conservatives. I guess now they believe in socialism because she ain't paying no rent. It's amazing. Also, very entertaining. But at the same time, look, you have to be honest about this, right? It's also dangerous. Dangerous for her. I mean, look, people are spending their free time making stuff up about her, making photoshops to try to get her in trouble, attributing false quotes. And then, of course, there's constantly taking her words out of context, as they, did just recently about her statements about poverty and crime. And then some of the more extreme examples is sending hate tweets. We've all seen those, but also death and rape threats. And so that is very dangerous. I mean, for her to be standing up tall and strong in the midst of all of that, it says a lot about her character and her personal strength. And her desire, of course, to continue serving her constituents, the people that she works for. And that both makes her a target by the extreme right and also by the establishment. And look, let's be honest, both of those people serve the same paymasters that she directly opposes the influence of on our politics. She doesn't take corporate money. She wants real reform, real change. And of course, there are people that lose their minds over this, over her. Because not only does she want to change the system to make it better for working people, but, and this is what really gets them, really gets their goat, really burns their ass. She's a young female Latina who fights back. She didn't fold like some of the other Democrats when you challenge them. I mean, one of the worst things right now in Congress is to be getting into a Twitter fight with AOC. Because every time, well, she knocks them down. And they hate her for it. Hate her for it. That said, it's not as if you can't have legitimate criticisms of AOC. I know some of you have brought some criticisms of her maybe not being strong enough on certain issues or not being loud enough or things like that. And I understand those criticisms, and I understand the desire to push our politicians. I think we should. At the same time, we on the left, we have to be careful not to destroy the people who are legitimately on our side. And we tend to, we do have a tendency in the left to kind of do that, to be a little bit too critical of those who are actually on our side when we don't quite get the results that we're asking for. You got to remember that there are big structural disadvantages to progressive policy, and you can be pushing it all day, but that doesn't mean that it's still not a slow, deliberative process to actually get things through Congress. But, God bless you guys for still wanting to fight, still having the fire, still wanting to push. We just got to be, we got to aim our fire at the right people. People in leadership like Pelosi and Schumer who are actually refusing to move and to enact progressive reforms. That said, this is not what the right wing is doing. This is not what Kilmeade's doing. No, Kilmeade's sharing fake news in order to fit his narrative, right? In order to feed into the right wing narrative that AOC is, not only like a dumb person, but actually anti-working class. Well, that's not true at all. She's very, very pro working class. And so if you're going to distort and literally make stuff up to try to fit a fake narrative, well, then your ass is going to get called out, and you would absolutely deserve it. By the way, Kill Me deleted that tweet. Nonetheless, it's there. All right. One more AOC related story. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was accosted on the steps of the Capitol earlier today. Now, according to reports from reporters who were at the scene, who watched this unfold, Representative Ted Yoho was coming down the steps on the east side of the Capitol, having just voted, when he approached AOC. She was, of course, getting into the building to cast a vote for her of her own, and they, well, ran into each other and had a rather testy exchange that was overheard by this reporter. Yoho told Cortez that she was, quote, disgusting. Oh, great. So, yeah, what happened to that civility, right? Oh, doesn't exist because it's literally just a way to try to clamp down on the left. So now, in the context of this, right, he said that she was disgusting for suggesting that poverty and unemployment were driving a spike in crime in New York City during the coronavirus pandemic. Okay, so now wait a minute. Let me give you some additional context into this. So this goes back to one of her recent town halls. She suggested that some of the surge in crime stems from economic hardship facing New York's poorest communities. So now some of New York has also seen an increase in gun crime, in shootings, right? So now the right wing says, well, that doesn't have anything to do with poor people, right? Then why are people shooting each other? I mean, it's not like they're, going and stealing a loaf of bread or anything like that. No, they're shooting each other. Well, that was one of the things that the right took out of context. And so what she actually did say is that, look, crime is a problem of a diseased society, which neglects its marginalized people. Policing is not the solution to crime. So look, I mean, she's right? When you get into, the nuance, when you actually try to have a real discussion without, political agendas, you get into a discussion about, okay, you've got crimes of despair, right? Generally, people don't do crime because they like crime. Yeah, sure, some people do. All right. But for the rest of people, I think there's normally an underlying reason. And some of those reasons, some of those factors that do lead to some crime are legitimate. Again, you've got poverty. And by the way, I'm not saying that the crimes themselves are legitimate. I'm just saying the reasons are understandable. Like, okay, I get it. You shouldn't do that. And maybe we should have programs to alleviate those factors, which is what AOC was saying. But you can understand, like, somebody who's poor, who can't afford food, can't afford their rent, will go and steal. I get it. It, again, doesn't make it right, doesn't make it just. But you have to understand that those factors are there. And we should have a government that is able to actually help those people. And look, you could also have, theft being a result of mental illness, which is also, again, something that we could use government spending, government resources to be able to help that person manage that mental illness. So all of that stuff, right? So now, that said, if you grow up in a disadvantaged area, and I don't remember who was talking about this, it might have been Vaush, right? So he was talking about the 1350, right? That gets talked about by conservatives a lot. How black people tend to do more crime, right? That's what conservatives are saying. And actually, with the numbers kind of panned out. Well, there's reasons for that. Okay, growing up in a disadvantaged area, the inner city with not a lot of job opportunity, what's the only way that you can provide for your family in some of those situations? Well, you join a gang. Now, gang violence is a huge problem. It's probably what's driving a lot of these shootings. But, you have that situation where you either make minimum wage working at McDonald's, right? Or make a lot more money dealing drugs. I mean, if your goal is to take care of your family and to get money, well, the choice for some people would be obvious. And so again, we can do something to alleviate those issues. We can do something to help to reduce that level of crime and actually make the choices for people in those communities a lot better. Because not everybody who does it necessarily wants to get mixed up into that and might not have a choice. But again, these are very nuanced discussions, and I can understand that there are some people that are not interested in a nuanced discussion, that are interested in writing off large swaths of especially the African American population as just thugs, criminals that are unable to be redeemed whatsoever. In actuality, of course, human beings are very complex people, and with very complex motivations, or even sometimes simple motivations, wanting to survive. Anyway, Ocasio-Cortez again went on to propose that economic desperation caused by coronavirus, which is also another thing with 42 million people out of work, millions more that are facing in October, about 21 million people, or it's 21 to 23 million people that face possibly eviction by October if there is no more coronavirus relief. If we allow those benefits in unemployment to end at the end of July, and don't do any sort of recurring UBI payment or do any sort of rent cancellation or freezing, something like that, in order to help them, then we're going to face a massive, massive eviction problem, homelessness problem. And that is looming on the horizon, and we can actually do something about it. And so she was saying that. Now, she also added that there were glitches in the delivery of federal stimulus checks, as we've seen, unemployment payments, that has helped trigger crime. And so she said maybe this has to do with the fact that people aren't paying their rent and are scared to pay their rent. And so they go out and they need to feed their child and they don't have the money. So they're put in a position where they feel like they either need to shoplift some bread or go hungry that night. Again, nothing to do with violent crime. So there's nothing to do with like the shootings, actually the violent stuff there. And so, again, they did take her out of context. All right. And again, I can see that. Again, that's not always the case. Again, nuance here, right? But she's right that you could alleviate at least a decent chunk of crime in an area if you go after the underlying causes of it. As for police, look, technically police aren't there to stop crime. I mean, the whole point of the cops is to catch people before or even sometimes during a crime, right? And the crimes they generally intervene in are usually traffic related. If there's a murder, then the cops generally didn't, prevent that, right? How could they have known that a murder was going to happen? They can't. Their job afterwards is to investigate, to find the people responsible, and get them off the street and into the justice system. Nobody's opposed to police playing that role and helping to keep the peace. What we are opposed to when it comes to police, and this is where defund the police comes into play, is, hey, maybe we should, instead of, funding the police to such an extent that we are doing right now, we should take some of that money and redirect it to things like education, job investment, opportunities, rehabilitation, mental health care, social work, and other things like that. Dealing with those things, dealing with mentally ill people, for example, are kind of above the cops' pay grade. They don't know what to do. They're not trained well in that situation. They shouldn't be asked to deal with that. And before somebody asks, well, how's a social worker supposed to restrain somebody that could be acting violent who's mentally ill? Well, let me tell you, workers do it all the time. Home healthcare workers, direct support professionals do it all the time in behavior in homes where people do sometimes violent behaviors. They're not allowed to kill their patients. No, if they do, they get blackballed from the industry. And they have to deal with all sorts of negative, violent, sometimes dangerous behaviors. They don't get a gun. I'm just saying, and they shouldn't. So why should cops deal with that when they're not trained? Right now, the cops take on way too much than we actually pay them for, than they actually should be doing, when they should just be there to keep the peace. And that's it. So now, all that aside, right? Back to AOC. So they're on the Capitol steps, and he calls her disgusting, and then adds, "You're out of your freaking mind." So her response was, "Well, you're being awfully rude," right? Now the two then parted ways. AOC headed into the building while Yoho, joined by Representative Roger Williams of Texas, began descending towards the House office buildings a few steps down. Yoho said this, quote, "Fucking bitch." Well, you're classy. What a classy guy. Now, after it happened, AOC did talk to reporters about it, because there was a reporter there, and said that kind of confrontation hasn't ever happened to me, ever. I've never had that kind of abrupt, disgusting kind of disrespect levied at me. Well, what do you expect from Republicans? Honestly. Approached a few hours later, Yoho had, quote, "no comment." Because, of course. Williams, who was in a position to hear the entire back and forth, said he wasn't paying attention, and he had this excuse. Quote, "I was actually thinking as I was walking down the stairs, I was thinking about some issues I've got in my district that need to get done. I don't know what their topic was. There's always a topic, isn't there?" The reason I do that stupid voice is that is a condescending, glib response. Total bullshit. To which, of course, AOC on Twitter later on said this, "Gotta love Republican courage from Representative Roger Williams. When he undeniably sees another man engaged in virulent harassment of a young woman, just pretend you never saw it in the most cartoonish manner possible and keep pushing." By the way, she adds, he's lying. He joined in with Yoho. So now it wasn't just Yoho. One Republican. It was two of them. Apparently, she, according to AOC, he was yelling at her as well about something about throwing urine. I don't know what the context of that conversation was, but wow. Blatantly lying to the reporter about who even saw this exchange, just lying to people. Any surprise, right? Any surprise? I mean, a conservative verbally accosting a fellow, it's supposed to be a colleague, right? On the steps, and then lying about it. Say it ain't so. This happens to, of course, be a young woman. But again, she's been a target for quite some time, even though she actually didn't expect this kind of this kind of thing from a fellow member of Congress. She said, "In all these intense news cycles, I have never, ever been treated that way by another member before. I am frankly quite taken aback." She also said that she holds her differences until they get to the door, right? And that's, of course, when they go into actually have substantive arguments, or supposed to have substantive arguments on the issues. She also did add in a tweet, "But bitches get things done." Look, I think this is, again, I'm not surprised, right? I believe this is how the base wants their politicians to act. Because that's how they act. They constantly scream in people's face, belittle women, call them names, right? I mean, how much would you bet this wouldn't have happened if it were a male politician in AOCC? I mean, I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty safe to say that I would win that bet. All right. I'm going to take a very quick break. I'm going to come back. We got more stuff here for you guys today, including the sexual harassment against Fox News. So stay right here. Well, I should say stay right here. I will come back after this break in about a minute or so, and we'll continue on with the show. Be back.
Mike Pence.
Wait, you're getting nervous, man.
Welcome back to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so a couple of super chats, I believe I have. If they would load. Okay. Before we get to that, I guess we'll thank a couple of patrons and some channel members. Let's see. I want to thank Ron Picker and Suzanne Larson. So that's our patrons of the day. If you want to sign up to help out, it's patreon.com/TYT Nation. That's how you can become a patron. Channel members is Jerry Krause and Tara Martin. So thank you. You want to become a channel member and support the show that way. You can hit the join button below. There's a couple of different tiers of membership, $2 and basically $5. And again, both helps us out greatly. So, all right. Super chats here. Dango Bengal says, I'm now convinced that Trump has indeed died and returned as a what? A hollow, evil soul who tore their mask off, no longer ashamed of themselves. Interesting. Sarge Tech says, I'm in such a bad mood today. First John Lewis, now Michael Brooks. Yet evil lives on. Yeah, look, it feels like 2020 progressives have taken a huge hit. I mean, just it constantly. I mean, the primary, of course, losing progressive members. Again, Michael Brooks is the latest one. And it's just, we're getting battered. But we're not broken. And so, that's That's at least one thing. We'll bend, we'll, but we won't break. And so we got to keep pushing on for the policies and for, the movement to help old people. All right. Let's move on. Fox News' highest rated hosts are in a little bit of trouble. News recently broke that 2 women had filed complaints of sexual misconduct by top Fox News hosts, which include Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Howard Kurtz, and Ed Henry. So now, Ed Henry, of course, no longer works at Fox News. He was fired on July 1st after an internal investigation. So, boom, that was no contest. Immediately, within a week, Ed Henry, absolutely gone. Okay. Now, the rape allegation comes from Jennifer Eckhart. Now, she was a former freelance administrative assistant turned associate producer for Fox Business. Now, according to the New York Times, Eckhart described a history of workplace harassment and a relationship with Ed Henry that she said included rape and violent sexual contact. So now, of course, the entire thing is the actual suit is incredibly graphic. I'm not going to get into that because, I'm sure there are some people that are watching. It comes with a trigger warning, right? So I don't want to get into the extent of what they actually did. Let's just say that it was not good, Ed Henry. So now she alleged that Mr. Henry had coerced her into a relationship by promising to advance her career. That the nature of that relationship, of course, would be sexual. And of course, that ended up being a bit sadomasochistic was the word. And so, boy. Now, Fox News, of course, as I mentioned earlier, they immediately fired Mr. Henry after Eckhart came out with these allegations against him. They said the network did not challenge Ms. Eckhart's allegations against Mr. Henry, noting that Fox News already took swift action as soon as it learned of Ms. Eckhart's claims on June 25th, and Mr. Henry is no longer employed by the network. So now look, Ed Henry, kind of not really somebody who made a lot of waves at Fox News, as far as I'm concerned, right? So that's definitely not a top tier host. I don't even think he hosted a show at all. Might have been a co-host or a contributor. And so somebody that didn't really bring in a lot of viewers. That leads me to the second plaintiff, right? So now the second plaintiff is a woman named Kathy Aru. Now she's a former Fox contributor and also known as a liberal Sherpa who, would guest on Tucker Carlson Tonight and several other shows. Now, I was curious about what a liberal Sherpa was, right? Again, it seems like slightly racist comment. But I guess the whole purpose is, when you bring somebody who's a liberal on Fox News, generally they do so that the host can destroy the argument and publicly own the liberal. I don't know if that's the case. I've never seen her on. I don't watch enough Tucker Carlson, so I'm unfamiliar with her. Nonetheless, right? Now she's alleging sexual harassment. Again, Ed Henry, he seems to have gotten around, but it's not just him. She also claims that Sean Hannity had offered his staff and crew money to take her out on a date during preparation for a taping. And that, she had declined that, of course. And afterwards, well, she basically never made it on his show again. That's messed up. That's definitely, punishment. He also would say, well, I only did that because you're such a beautiful woman. Well, you know what? That's not your prerogative, right? You're there to do supposed to be there to do a news show, but it is Sean Hannity after all. Not to try and set people up. It's such a weird, gross thing to do. But again, not just him, right? Tucker Carlson's show. During her final 2018 appearance on Tucker Carlson's show, she alleges that she was kept on the set by tech crew who refused to take her off earpiece so that Tucker Carlson could invite her to a hotel room where he was staying that night without his family. Now, why would you invite someone, again, your family's not there, why would you invite a woman to your hotel room then? That's weird. Now, she declined, and she alleges that she was punished in her career by only being featured on a show about 3 times since. Now, she also said she declined a meeting with Howard Kurtz, who does Media Buzz, and she actually had appeared on that show quite regularly. Now, Howard Kurtz allegedly wanted to meet her at a hotel room again one night in 2019. She's like, how about you meet with me and a friend for dinner? That sounds perfectly reasonable, right? For dinner. The hotel room, obviously, we all know what that's about. Come on. We're not naive about this stuff. All right. We're just not naive about this. We know what that means. Afterwards, after she said, let's go to dinner instead. Let's have a fun little dinner. Me, you, and a friend. And it's obvious why she would bring a friend. And he said no. And then afterwards would not talk to her about possible advancement opportunities, telling her, quote, in sum and in substance, you're the only woman here who won't come to my hotel room. Well, that says a lot about the women who work with Howard Kurtz. Pretty heavy charges. Now, look, let me just say that it's got to be adjudicated in court, right? Rod, and look, we don't know necessarily if it happened. At this point, it's her word against theirs. Obviously, we need to know more. One good way is, I guess, some of the witnesses, but then, of course, they would have to come forward. That said, would I be surprised if this were true? Absolutely not. I mean, consider the atmosphere within Fox News. This is the environment that Roger Ailes fostered for decades. Sean Hannity and Carlson, they worked under Roger Ailes, as did Bill O'Reilly and his famous falafels. So Ailes, of course, look, some of the stories about Ailes, I've told you on the show a long time ago, back when he was let go from Fox News shortly before he passed away. And, he would lock women in his office and allegedly run around without his pants on and chase them around the room. Real gross stuff. Real gross stuff. That's the kind of environment that was fostered at Fox News. And not just that, but there's the environment of retaliation, right? Roger Ailes would only give women, attractive women, career advancement or a job, right? And would also threaten to blackball women from media, especially back in the 60s and 70s, when it was much more difficult to get a media job as a female anchor. And he would basically say, sleep with me and I can get you a job. And if you don't, I'm going to prevent you from getting a job anywhere else. That's stuff that came out about Ailes. And the fish rots from the head down. That's exactly the culture that was created at Fox News. Look, you had Megyn Kelly, you had Gretchen. What was it? Gretchen. Now I can't think of her last name for some reason. Look, you've had these numerous women talking about this, alleging this. These two are not the only one. And so there's a serious culture problem at Fox News with misogyny. And that's what's going on here. And so, again, no surprise that Miss Aru, a frequent guest but not an employee in the network, said that she had been retaliated against by these hosts. Now, she also claimed that Gianna Caldwell, another Fox News contributor, inappropriately asked her to lunch in exchange for a meeting with Ann Coulter. Oh, yeah, just have lunch with me and I'll introduce you to Ann Coulter. Again, could that be like it depends on the context, whether or not that is inappropriate. Like, is he like, come with me to lunch, just have lunch with me, just a little bit of a date, and then I can introduce you to Ann Coulter later. Or, hey, I'm going to lunch with Ann Coulter. You want to go? I mean, again, the context matters, right? And so I don't know for sure. But going back to what it looked like at Fox News, I mean, not good. Now, Eckhart and Aru are seeking damages against Fox News and the defendants for sexual harassment, creating a hostile work environment, retaliation, and of course, in the case of Miss Eckhart and Mr. Henry, violations of laws against sex trafficking. Wow. They are demanding a trial by jury against Fox News, Ed Henry, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Howard Kurtz as defendants. Wow. So, look, they must have some pretty compelling evidence to back up their claims, and be feeling very confident. Or if you're a cynic, you could say, well, that might force them into a settlement. Who knows, right? I don't know what's going to happen. Now, Fox News is already saying, no way. Here's their statement. Based on the findings of a comprehensive independent investigation conducted by an outside law firm, that was not mentioned, including interviews with numerous eyewitnesses, we have determined that all of Kathy Aru's claims against Fox News, including its management, as well as hosts Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Howard Kurtz, and its contributor Gianna Caldwell, are false, patently frivolous, and utterly devoid of any merit. We take claims of harassment, misconduct, and retaliation seriously, promptly investigating them and taking immediate action as needed. And look, to back that up, they did fire Ed Henry, like, real quick, right? In this case, the appropriate action based on our investigation is to defend vigorously against these baseless allegations. Ms. Aru and Jennifer Eckhart can pursue their claims against Ed Henry directly with him, as Fox News already took swift action as soon as it learned of Ms. Eckhart's claims on June 25th, and Mr. Henry is no longer employed by the network. So what Fox News did is immediately wash their hands of Ed Henry. Honestly, who is a big fan of Ed Henry, right? Who's a big Ed Henry stan? I don't know. I'm sure maybe they exist. But here's the thing, right? And this is where my cynical mind starts rolling, right? The wheels start turning. The hamster wheel comes to life. When it comes to, Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, they're Fox News' top-rated hosts. Tucker Carlson runs the largest, best-rated show on the Fox network. And Fox News is already a cable ratings juggernaut. Tucker Carlson drives a lot of that ratings. So, I don't know. I think when it comes to the Fox News's first instinct, it is to protect the people who bring in the money. That's just me. Again, I don't know the investigation. I don't know the details. I don't know what they found. Maybe they're right. But again, would you be surprised with that culture, with what's going on? And it's not just at Fox News, by the way. People in power, regardless of ideology, are capable of doing heinous things when given free rein, when given that power. I mean, especially when you have an environment like media, corporate media, that fosters that. We saw it with Matt Lauer, right? Matt Lauer would lock women into his office. And, he had a literal button under his desk that would lock the doors. Like, come on, dude, really? Really? And not only that, but we've seen it with people in Hollywood. We've seen it other people in media. And that's the unfortunate reality of women that are trying to get into this career. There are powerful people out there that are more than happy to use their power to groom and exploit women who want to advance their careers. So again, I don't know what the facts are, right? Those would have to be adjudicated if this ever goes to court, which I hope it does. And we get to see evidence. And, you know, if this does happen, these women deserve justice. And I'm just saying that, for my personal opinion, I wouldn't be shocked if they actually did do that. If, you know, at least in some of these cases, these allegations are true, because I've seen this happen before, and I've seen this. Harvey Weinstein, another great example of people grooming, women, very powerful people, very powerful men, I should say, grooming women for their own, personal, sexual gratification. That's all I'm saying. All right. That's all I got for you guys today. All I got time for. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Thank you for the likes, the shares. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It's a bit of a sullen show, so I'm not exactly at my best. But, due to the circumstances, of course, I'm sure you all understand. Thank you. All right, guys. That's it. Love you guys. Stay strong. As always, continue to fight the fight. Stay safe, wash your hands, and remember, change begins with you. Love you guys, and we'll see you later.
Mike Pounds.
Please clap.
I like my meat tight. Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.